And now, a passage from The Past and Present of Boone County, Illinois. Before resuming the history proper of Boone County from where we left the organization of the county and the proceedings of the County Commissioner's Court in May 1837, we may be pardoned by the reader for a slight digression relative to Big Thunder and his burial, and incidents relative thereto. Big Thunder was a noted character among his people, not from his stature, however, which was rather under the medium average of his race, but from his influence among them. His voice perhaps gave him the name he bore, as it is a prevailing practice with nearly all Indian tribes to name any object after that of which it most reminds them. Big Thunder, no doubt, when he laid aside the bow and arrow for the more effective rifle, tomahawk, and scalping knife, was possessed of a strong, stentorian voice that in councils or giving words of command reminded his tribe or followers of a deep, distant thunder, and hence the name. But be this as it may, sometime previous to the removal of his tribe to the west, he sickened and was taken over to the Happy Hunting Grounds. His burial place was selected on the highest point of ground on the mound where the courthouse has since been built. As was their custom, no grave was dug, but wrapped in his blankets and seated on a rude stool or bench, with his feet placed on an Indian-made rug, with his face turned towards the west, a direction in which a battle was expected to take place between his tribe and another. A structure made of split white ash logs, from which the bark was peeled, was erected around his body and covered with bark. The expected battle never came off, and consequently the war spirit of Big Thunder did not re-enter his mouldering body and join the victorious whoops of his braves as their vanquished foes fell beneath their tomahawks and scalping knives. In those days, Belvedere was on a stage route from Chicago to Galena. The travel was heavy, and here the horses were changed, and sometimes for other causes a delay of from half an hour to an hour would occur. For many miles in all directions, the Indian sarcophagus that surrounded the body of Big Thunder could be distinctly seen. The logs or slabs from which the bark had been peeled had bleached and whitened in the sun, until they were almost as white as snow. To travelers and land hunters from the east, those who had never seen an Indian or an Indian grave, this last abode of Big Thunder was an object of curiosity. And while the stage would be delayed, passengers would betake themselves to the mound on which he was buried to view his coop, and perhaps scratch their names and date of their visit on the logs. Or, maybe, when the flesh had mouldered and fallen from the bones, leaving only a dried skeleton, gather up a bone and carry it home as a trophy of their visit out in the Indian country. His head was the first part of his anatomy to be carried away. That was taken to Chicago, and finally found its way into the possession of a noted phrenologist. Next, another bone would be taken, and then another, and another, until the bones composing the human frame were nearly all gone. Appreciating and wishing to gratify the curiosity of travelers, some of the wags of Belvedere would secretly gather up the dried bones of hogs, and to secretly throw them into Big Thunder's coop. None the wiser of this little trick, travelers and curiosity gatherers would stop and pick out such bones as their fancy liked, pocket them, and carry them away. This little joke of the boys of Belvedere was kept up as long as the grounds around the coop were left open, and it is pretty safe to assume that many a museum of curiosities in the eastern states has hog bones labeled "Thigh Bone of Big Thunder, an Indian chief of the Potawatomi Indians, buried at Belvedere, Illinois," or a forearm, a middle finger, a rib, a spinal joint, or something else. Another incident connected with Big Thunder's coop may not be amiss in this connection. It is told of Simon P. Doty. He does not deny it, but laughs over it when the matter is spoken of as heartily as anyone. Like hundreds of other people, especially sailors of whom he was one in his early years, Mr. Doty likes tobacco. Very often in the early settlement of Boone County, the supply of tobacco hereabouts would give out, and chewers of the weed would per force of circumstance be compelled to go without for days at a time, sometimes for a week or more. Indians are proverbial for their use of tobacco, and whenever they chanced to pass by the coop of Big Thunder, they would throw a piece of chewing or pouch of smoking tobacco at his feet or into his lap. On one of the occasions when tobacco among the white settlers had given out, Mr. Doty and Erastus A. Nixon were engaged in scoring and hewing timber. Doty had suffered and agonized for some time for a chew. Finally, he could endure it no longer, and passing up to Big Thunder's coop, he reached in and abstracted a small supply. Mr. Nixon was equally suffering and longing for some tobacco. To his requests of Mr. Doty for a chew, the latter protested that he had none. This, however, was before Doty had visited the coop on the mound, and of course he was honest and truthful when he protested he was out. After that visit, his friend and co-laborer noticed him expectorate, and his suspicions were aroused. He picked up the chip upon which the spittle had fallen, and exclaimed, "Doty, you have tobacco." Doty had to own up, to acknowledge the truth of the charge, and pledging Mr. Nixon to secrecy, he told him where and how he obtained it. But it was too good to keep, the joke, and not the tobacco, and it had to be told. It has been the occasion of many a laugh at Doty's expense, but he takes it in good part, and in speaking of it even at this day, in his 81st year, will laugh as heartily over it as any of the boys who always know where and how to get tobacco without going to the coop of a dead Indian chieftain for it. If you enjoy forgotten and obscure stories like this one, head on over to my Patreon to support the channel. High Americana is bringing you content you're not going to get anywhere else. Thank you.